13 years later, during World War I, Herzl's dream of a Jewish homeland would become reality as the British won control of Palestine from the Turks and lent a sympathetic ear to the calls of the Zionists. One of the most triumphant scenes of World War I came in 1917, when British General Sir Edmund Allenby entered the Jaffa Gate to accept the Turkish surrender of Palestine. In contrast to the German Kaiser, Allenby voluntarily dismounted and walked his horse through the gate. Ironically, Allenby was in fact eligible to ride through as a conqueror, but he chose the gesture of humility instead. Allenby accepted the Turkish surrender at one of the most dramatic sites in the Old City, the huge defensive guard tower and fortress known as the Citadel and David's Tower. The name David's Tower can be confusing since the structure was built well after David's reign. It is believed early Byzantines mistook the site for the tomb of David, thus creating the name. The structure was actually built by Herod the Great as part of a three-tower system to protect his luxurious palace. It is located on some of the highest ground in the city, making it one of the most strategic defensive locations in the city. When Titus and the Roman legions conquered Jerusalem in the middle of the 1st century, the citadel was one of the final buildings to fall. In fact, it took the Romans almost a month after they had captured the city before they were able to occupy the citadel. Following the 1917 Turkish surrender, a new group of rulers took over Jerusalem, the British. Prior to the surrender, several Allied nations had signed a secret agreement to make Palestine an Arab state, with control of the region split between Britain and France. As part of the agreement, the British ended up with Jerusalem. The next 32 years posed numerous problems between both the British and the Jewish people. During the short British reign, the Old City began a program of restoration. The railway line to the Jaffa harbor was repaired. Holy sites were refurbished, and new museums, hotels, and hospitals were opened. Buildings sprang up all over the city. The British showed an interest in keeping and maintaining the ancient character of the Old City. British Governor Sir Ronald Storrs even decreed that any new structures built must use the local pink and beige stone that was so prevalent in the older sites around Jerusalem. Religious pilgrims, especially Jewish ones, could now freely come and go. And they began coming in record numbers. However, many who came were more than just visitors. Following World War II, Jewish survivors of the Holocaust wanted to return to their homes in Eastern Europe. They were shocked to discover that they were still unwelcome. From August 1945 to May 1946, 64 ships left Europe, bringing 73,000 refugees to Palestine, who intended to settle in the homeland of their ancestors. They were aided by the underground Jewish army, the Haganah. But the British clung to their 1939 immigration limits because of Arab pressure. British forces turned back overcrowded ships or put illegal refugees into overcrowded internment camps. As an act of rebellion against the British, the Haganah proceeded to blow up 9 key bridges in Palestine in one night. On July 22, 1946, an entire wing of Jerusalem's beautiful King David Hotel exploded and collapsed. The bombing killed 91 people. The Irgun, a terrorist organization led by the late Menachem Begin, claimed responsibility. The ongoing tensions and loss of life was too much, and the British people began calling for withdrawal. In February 1947, Great Britain's cabinet decided to let the United Nations resolve the Palestine problem. After 9 months of debating, the UN produced a plan to partition Palestine between a Jewish and an Arab state. On November 29, 1947, the UN General Assembly voted in favor of the plan. Even as Jews danced in the streets, Arab rioting erupted throughout Palestine. In the first 5 months of 1948, every isolated Jewish village was attacked. In less than 6 months, 6,000 Jewish soldiers and civilians were killed. On May 15, 1948, the British pulled out of Palestine, and the Jewish State of Israel was born. Nowhere are the scars of the 1948 War of Independence more apparent than at the incredible Zion Gate. The gate was one of the focal points in the heavy fighting that broke out following the British retreat. As soon as the British troops were out of sight, the various Arab and Jewish factions of the city began vying for control of strategic sites within the gates. Some of the lopsided battles did go a long way toward helping build the Jewish army's later reputation for toughness. In one brief battle in mid-May, a ragtag Jewish force under Colonel David Shatil briefly took control of the Zion Gate. But to get the gate, they had to nearly destroy it. The War of Independence lasted for 7 months. Israel was victorious, except in Jerusalem. The Jewish quarter of the Old City could not hold out against overwhelming opposition, and ultimately fell to Jordanian legionnaires. At first, the city sustained only minor damage. But after Jewish nationalists surrendered to the victorious Jordanians, real destruction began to occur. Arab militants looted synagogues, schools, and homes, then began dynamiting structures in the Jewish quarter. In the end, 27 synagogues were destroyed, including the historic Nachmanides synagogue that dated from 1267. For nearly 19 years, the area around the Zion Gate became a no-man's land between Israelis and the Jordanians. To wander into the area was to invite sniper fire from the Jordanian troops manning the ramparts of the old city wall. Concrete barriers were erected to protect pedestrians. Not until after the Six-Day War in 1967 could the Jewish people rebuild and restore the Jewish quarter. It is now one of the most modern and attractive parts of the old city. Even today, one of the first things a visitor to the Zion Gate notices is the bullet holes that dot the wall around the old entryway. The fighting during the 1948 War of Independence wasn't the first conflict this old gate had seen. It was even designed to provide a defense for the city during the frequent wars and battles it had to live through over the centuries. The Zion Gate, like the Jaffa Gate, makes a turn as it passes through the city wall. The idea was to make it difficult for a mounted soldier, especially one carrying a lance, to maneuver through the gate. The result today is that the gate frequently provides a dangerous passage for modern automobiles. Many a vehicle has lost a headlight or sustained a crumpled fender, making the sharp turn. After gaining control of the old city, Jordan closed off the Jewish quarter and denied access to the Jewish holy sites, including the Western Wall. Unable to pray at the Holy Wall, Israelis found that the only place where they could catch a glimpse of the sacred wall was Mount Zion, just outside the Zion Gate. Mount Zion was a quiet land between the warring forces, and it provided a place to congregate for prayer. The Jewish people frequently gathered together to pray that the Holy Wall would again be open to the nation. But even after a 1949 ceasefire, the Western Wall remained off-limits. So the spiritual significance of Mount Zion continued to grow. The small mountain, which gave the Zion Gate its name, became a holy site for all three of the major religious groups of Jerusalem.